I just want to say, man, I'm so happy to see you guys today. How many of you guys are ready for school to be out? All right, yeah. I am ready for summer. It already feels like summer. It's 98 degrees today? Oh my gosh. It's just crazy. I'm just like ready for winter again, I'm ready for winter again. I've been putting on sunscreen when I leave the house, because I get burned really easy. But hey, tonight we're going to be talking about something. The title of my message, actually, I'm not going to tell you the title yet. I'm going to make you wait for it. In 1492, there was a dude named Christopher Columbus. He sailed the ocean blue. In fact, in 1492, Christopher Columbus sailed the ocean blue. And he went out and he had the permission of the Pope to go. But there's some interesting things about Christopher Columbus. Did you know that people actually debate whether he should be a saint or not? He was really a very influential person in the church and an influential person of his time. But he said some quotes when he was sailing out. He says this. He says, "Following the light of the world, we left the old world." I really like that. Following the light of the world. So following the sun, as the sun descended, they were going west to the new world. And the old world was left behind. The world that he'd always known was left behind. Can you imagine not knowing what was over the horizon? Not knowing because back then they thought the world was flat. They thought that you would just fall off the edge. Can you imagine going into that unknown? Maybe the world is flat, I don't know. All the arguments, I'm just baffled, But back then they thought that it was really, you just fall off the edge of the earth. And I just can't imagine not knowing what that night when I went to sleep, whether the ship was going to fall off the world or not. He also said this, he says, for the execution of the voyage of the Indies, he thought he was going to end up in India, but he ended up discovering a whole new continent. So for the execution of the voyage of the Indies, I did not make use of the technological mathematics or maps. Intelligence. I did not make use of the intelligence, mathematics, or maps. He was going off into the unknown with literally nothing but the stars above him and the sun ahead. That's all he had. He had this gut feeling that there was something he had to go. And I want to talk about that today, is that what if God was calling us to do something so crazy, so absurd, like Christopher Columbus felt like he was called to do that over, 500 years ago? What if God was telling you to trust him in the unknown? What if he was calling you to trust him to go into the wild blue yonder? And that's what we're going to talk about today. If you guys have your Bibles, turn to Hebrews 11, verse 10 through 12, and we're gonna read the scripture. But before I do that, man, I want us as a youth group, as a church. I know Pastor Kelly is included in this. But we want to be a church that risks the ocean. We want to be a church that is not afraid to take risks. That's not afraid to put ourselves out there when we feel God is calling us to the unknown to do something. We don't want to stay the same. We want to change. We want to take risks. We're bet the farm risk takers. We don't want to stay in the box. We want to be outside of the box. And so there's this movie that I like called The Book of Eli. Have you guys ever seen that movie? Anybody ever seen that movie? I don't want to spoil the movie for you, but maybe we'll do a whole series on it because we're doing At the Movies in July. We're gonna have popcorn. It's gonna be a great series. And I've already got like 3 sermons out of The Greatest Showman, so it's gonna happen. But in the book of Eli, this guy named Eli, actually, it wasn't Eli back there, but it was a guy named Eli, and God literally showed him the last book, the last Bible that ever existed in America, at least, maybe the world. And he tells him to just get this book, read it every day, and then head west. So he travels for 30 years, just heading in a direction that he didn't even know. At one point in the movie, Solara, the girl that was with him, was saying, "Where are we going? How do you just walk without knowing where to go?" He said, "I just have a good feeling about this is the direction I need to go." And I feel like sometimes in our lives, we may not know where we need to go. We may not know what the next step is in our life. We may not know exactly where God is leading us, but we have to follow the directions that he last gave us. And I'm going to talk to you guys about a man who did this in the Bible, and his name was Abraham, or Abram at the time. He was living in a city called the Ur of the Chaldees. He was living in what is now called Mesopotamia. And God calls him out of this place of comfort, out of this place of being with family, and he was a successful man. But he loved the Lord, he loved God, and God spoke to him and said, Abram, I want you to head west. I want you to leave your comfort. I want you to leave all your control, all the things that you thought you knew, and I want you to go west. He didn't tell him why. He didn't tell him how it was going to happen. He just told him what to do. And some of you guys are going to start getting very clear direction these next couple weeks as we talk about this, of what God wants you to do. You might not know how you're going to do it. You might not know exactly why you're doing it, but God has a purpose and he has a plan. So let's read this text. It's in Hebrews 11, 10 through 12. By the way, there's a lot of speculation of who wrote the book of Hebrews. It's actually in the New Testament. So it's after the book was written after Jesus had died and resurrected and gone to heaven. And it was written by one of his disciples, speculatively. Actually, there's a lot of people, they don't know exactly who wrote it. Some people think it was Paul, Paul the apostle, the one who planted a bunch of churches. Some people think it was actually one of the girls that would follow Jesus around, Aquila. Some people think that it was, they just really don't know. But the point of this, in Hebrews chapter 11, this is called the faith chapter. This is called the chapter of faith. This is called the heroes of the faith. Because there's certain heroes of the faith that, are very honored in this chapter. So I encourage you guys, if you're curious about what this chapter is, or you're curious about who in the Bible should you model your life on, this is the chapter you should read, Hebrews chapter 11. And this is, I hope one day, they, in the halls of heaven, there's like all the names of the heroes of the faith. And maybe, just maybe, mine will be like this big on the ground, maybe. But to be a hero of the faith, it could entail you getting sawed in two. That's what it says in this chapter, by the way, anyway. So go and read it. It's actually, the Bible is really interesting if you read it. It's like, literally, they said some of these people were sawed in two. Like, I don't know about you guys, but that's a bad day. I've had some bad days. I don't know if I had that bad of a day. So if you're ever just wanting some encouragement, just read Hebrews 11, So anyway, Hebrews 11, verse 10. Abraham did it by keeping his eye on an unseen city with real, eternal foundations. The city designed and built by God. By faith, barren Sarah was able to become pregnant. Old woman as she was at the time, because she believed the one who made a promise would do what he said. Because she believed the one who made a promise would do what he said. That's how it happened. That one man's dead and shriveled loins, it's kind of funny. There are now people numbering into the millions. For those of you who that went right over your head, loins is a word that describes how you make babies. So, all right, I'm just gonna move on. So, this is where we get the title of the message. I want to read verse 10 again. It says, Abraham did it by keeping his eye on an unseen city with real, eternal foundations, the city designed and built by God. So, the title of the message today is called City in the Sky. There's a city in the sky, and Abraham knew this city. That's what kept him going. When he was pretty much as good as dead, his loins were as good as dead. His loins were as good as dead, but he kept his eye on the city in the sky. All right. Have you guys ever rode on an airplane? How many of you guys ever rode on an airplane? I like riding on airplanes because I'm like the kind of guy that I'm the kind of guy everybody that rides airplanes a lot hates, okay? If people that ride airplanes a lot, they will sit in like they'll sit they'll try to find the people that like have their headphones in and are watching something, and they'll put their headphones in or their book. And what that means in airplane language is do not talk to me. When somebody opens their book when they sit next to you or they have headphones or something, it just means I don't want to talk. But I'm the kind of annoying person that starts talking to the person next to me. And invariably, I am always trying to figure out a way that I can sneak Jesus in there somehow. I don't know, maybe it's because the only time that, I'm the kind of guy, even when I'm at Target, I feel sorry for the cash register sometimes because I'm about to just get into your world and tell you about Jesus. That's just, so if you work at Target, if you're a cash register, anywhere, beware of Mitch Roving. If you're listening out there, just stay away from Mitch Roving. But anyway, so I love airplanes. I actually read a statistic that there are over 1 million airplanes in the air at a given time. That is crazy. There are over 1 million airplanes around the world at a certain times. There's over 1 million in the air. That is crazy. That is crazy to me. Or maybe it's over 1 million people in the air. Maybe that's what it is. There are over 1 million people in the air at a given time. So what this means is there is a literal city in the sky. At any given time, there are 1 million people in the air at a given time. That's crazy to me. Like I said, I love airplanes, but don't sit next to me in one because, well, you guys will be fine. You like talking about Jesus. You're passionate about Jesus, right? You guys are on fire about Jesus, right? We didn't even do our thing. Jesus is? All right. See, for those of you guys, Dylan and Lizzie. Dylan and Lizzie. I knew your name. How did I forget that? Dylan and Lizzie, you'll get it. We say that every time. Jesus is real, because he is. And we're super passionate about him here. So here's the thing, is that, there's a literal city in the sky. And here's the thing, is that Abraham, the reason that he knew that he could trust God was because he kept his eye focused on this city in the sky. And the city in the sky is maybe it's not a literal city like in an airplane, but here's what it is. It's heaven. Abraham was looking at the end of his life. He knew at the end of his life, like how many of you guys were here on Sunday? Pastor Nick, I'll just call him Pastor Nick. Pastor Nick talked about, hey, you focus on your life, your legacy, and the Lord. Your legacy is what are you going to leave at the end of your life? For those of you who are in middle school, when you go to high school, what legacy are you going to leave for the 6th and 7th graders when you go to high school? For those of you who are in high school, what legacy are you going to leave for those of you who are about to graduate this year or next year or in 2 years? What legacy are you going to leave to the 9th graders, the 10th graders, the juniors? What legacy are you going to leave? What legacy are you going to leave 30 years from now? What do you want to leave behind? I know I want to be someone that sought the Lord and had my eyes fixed on the city in the sky. I want to have my eyes fixed on the city in the sky and not just be focused on the city down here. Because I can't change the city down here if I don't look to the city up there. I can't change what's going on right now in my life. Only by God's power can you change what's going on in your life. Only by God's power can you change what's going on in your school. Only by God's power can you change some of the situations that are in your family. And Abraham knew this. That's why he's in the Hall of Fame. If Abraham hadn't obeyed, none of us would be here right now. If Abraham hadn't gone into the unknown, we would not be here, because by Abraham's faith, we can have faith. Because he obeyed God, we have the option to obey God. He is the founder of faith. Before that, nobody really followed God. A whole nation came after Abraham. And you guys all know the song. Father Abraham had many sons, and many sons had Father Abraham, and I am one of them, and so are you. So let's all sing, na, na, na. I don't remember the rest. I didn't grow up in Sunday school, don't judge me. All right. So, Revelations chapter 21, verse 1 says this. And remember, this Revelation is written by a dude named John. And he's on an island all by himself. Have you guys ever felt like you're all by yourself? I have. And all John ever had, all he had was a revelation from God. And this is what he saw. In verse 21, verse 1, he says this, "Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth. For the first heaven and the first earth had passed away, and the sea was no more. And I saw the holy city, or the city in the sky, the new Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, preparing as a bride adorned from her husband. And I heard a low voice from the throne saying, 'Behold, the dwelling place of God is with man. He will dwell with them, and he will be with his people, and God himself will be with them as their God.'" I love this part. We're going to Guatemala in July. With some of you guys will be going. And we've gone to Costa Rica in the past. And I know that in our context in America, we have a lot. We throw away things that other people would die to have. We throw away things that certain people in other countries are wanting so desperately. And sometimes we are so focused on the city down here. So sometimes we're so focused on what we can get, on how we can get it, on how we can accumulate wealth, on what our education is going to be, that we forget it. And I remember being in a city called Triangulo in Costa Rica. And literally sewage is running down the streets. Their houses are like as big as this drum cage, no lie. Like their houses are as big as this drum cage. And it's just 10. I remember the first time I went to another country in Guatemala, and I woke up early that morning because I flew in at night, and I went to the top of the school that we were staying at called Vida y Esperanza. And I remember looking out and seeing these 10 huts all over, and they were just stacked on top of each other. And I just began to weep because I was like, God, we have so much. I grew up having so much, and sometimes I get so focused on what I have right now, so focused on this world. But I remember going and praying with this single mother who was trying to raise her kids. Her husband had died in a car accident, in a motorcycle accident. And she began to weep, and I was praying with her. And she said this, she said, all I could say to her is that someday, there'll be no more tears. There'll be no more pain. There'll be no more suffering. There'll be no, and just listen to this. I just quoted this verse to her. "He will wipe away every tear from their eyes, and death shall be no more. Neither shall there be mourning, nor crying, nor pain anymore, for the former things have passed away." That's the city in the sky. That's the city in the sky. All the pain, and sometimes it's really hard for us to focus on the city in the sky. Sometimes it's hard for us to focus on heaven. But here's the other thing, is that heaven is not some place way out there that we can just beam me up, Scotty, I'm dead, I'm gonna go. Heaven, it'll be a new earth. It'll be a new creation, but it's still the same. It's the same creation that we have right now, but it's redeemed. It's made new. And here's the thing, I believe that you're still gonna have the bodies that you have right now because God makes all things new. He makes all things new. So we should take care of our bodies. We should take care of the world that we have. But also we should keep our eyes fixed on the future to come. Because in this verse, it says, in the end, he'll wipe away it all. He'll wipe away every tear, all the pain. And I think sometimes we have to focus on it extra hard because what did Jesus say? He said it's easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than a rich man to enter the kingdom of heaven. And here's the thing, is that we as Americans are all rich. You may not think you're rich. You may think, oh, these other people are rich, or they have money, or they have more money than me. But if your parents drive a car, if you have 2 cars, you're rich. If you have a house over your head, you're rich. And sometimes we can get so focused on what's going on right now that we stop seeking God in the unknown. We stop seeking for the city in the sky, as Abraham did, because that's the only way that he was able to have faith in God. We have to fight to keep our eye on the city in the sky. We have to fight to keep our eyes on the city in the sky. We have to fight to keep our eyes on the city in the sky. We have to fight to keep our eyes in heaven, onto heaven, because that's the only way we're going to change earth. The only way we'll change earth is to have a heavenly mindset. It's the only way. So here's some things that will stop you. Here's some things that might stop you from looking to the city in the sky, or stop you from going into the unknown as Christopher Columbus did over 600 years ago, as Abraham did in the Bible whenever he went west out of the Ur of the Chaldees, and now he's going to reach the promised land, as Moses did when he came out of Egypt and into the promised land, right? All these heroes of the faith. Here's the things that will stop you. Number one is staying in your comfort zone. Staying in your comfort zone will stop you from inheriting, from keeping your eyes on that unknown, on heaven, in reaching to the city of the sky. I've had so many experiences with staying in my comfort zone, and I remember the first time I ever spoke publicly, I was scared to death. I remember I was a sophomore in high school, and I was trying to eat, and I couldn't eat anything. When I get nervous, I don't eat. A lot of Wednesdays I don't eat before service. I just don't. But I stepped outside of my comfort zone, and I spoke in front of 200 businessmen in the community. And I didn't talk about Jesus or anything like that. I actually talked about having a right to vote. I remember the first time, or exercising your right to vote. I remember the first time that I invited somebody to church. I remember the first time I led somebody to the Lord. I remember the first time that I stepped onto the stage to preach from a platform. I was scared to death. I remember the first time I spoke in a public school. I am not naturally wanting to have a microphone like this. You may think that, but I really would rather just be sitting back there behind the sound booth. Honestly, I would. And I love talking to people one-on-one and that kind of stuff, but I feel strongly, as we talked about last time we talked, that I'm compelled to preach. Woe is me if I do not preach the gospel. And some of you guys are going to start feeling that. Some of you are going to start feeling that compulsion, that drive to go into the unknown, to do something you never have done before. And here's the thing, because I want to say take the step. Because the only thing that will trump your comfort zone is this: compassion for others. Compassion is the only thing that will get you outside of your comfort zone, because it wasn't because I wanted fame that I spoke on stage. It wasn't because I wanted to be known by my youth pastor, for him to say, "Man, Mitch, you're awesome," that I invited a friend to church. It wasn't the fact that I wanted to go in front of a public school and talk in front of people and FCAs and go take lunch to people that I do it. It's because I care about you guys so much. It's because I love you guys. And the only thing that will get you out of your comfort zone is the love for other people, for compassion, to suffer with them, to want so badly to reach someone for God that you will do anything short of sin to do that. That you will do anything to reach them and just show that love. And that's why I do what I do. That's why I spend long nights when I could be at home with Brooklyn, going to events, or I could be home with Berkeley. Berkeley thinks we hate her because we're always gone. I'm just playing. No, I'm just playing. But that's serious. So the first point is comfort zone. It's only combated by compassion. The second one is control. You can't have control and go into the unknown. You can't control God. You can't control what he asks you to do. All we have to do is open ourselves up and say, "God, wherever you want me to go, whatever you want me to do, I'll do it. I'll do it, God. I'm not afraid." I love this song. It says, "I'm not afraid anymore. I am not ashamed anymore." Yeah, thank you guys, thank you. But I love this song. I'm gonna keep singing it, but I just can't. So the only thing is this: the only thing that will combat control is to have courage. Abraham could not control what God asked him to do, but he had the courage to step out and do it. You will never get to the place in your life where you feel comfortable doing the things that God has asked you to do, because he's always going to ask you to do more. When you get to a place where you feel like, "I'm good now with God. God, we're good. I did what you asked." That's whenever you're in your comfort zone. You're trying to control God, or you do things for God so that he can give you what you want. God, I'll do this. God, I'll invite this person to church, but man, I don't want to stop smoking. Or God, I'll do this, but I really can't invite them to church. Like God, I'll go to church myself. But what will they think of me? What will they think of me? That's a legitimate thing. Or God, I'll serve you, but don't send me. Don't ask me to talk to that person. Don't ask me to love that person. God, I'll love anybody you want, but I can't love that person. We all have that thing that we try to control. And it's only combated by courage. The last thing that will stop us from reaching the city in the sky or keeping our eyes on the city in the sky is clinging to the past. God, I can't go forward with what you're asking me to do. God, don't you know what I've done? You just let shame creep in. You just let this voice in your head tell you, God, you know they'll never listen to me. Like, remember what I did last summer? Remember what I did last year? Remember what I did last week? And you just cling into the past. Or you're saying this, God, I already did that once. I don't want to try that again. I already invited somebody once. I don't want to try that again. God, I already attended church once. I don't want to do that again. God, I already tried to get up be a part of the worship team once. God, I already tried to do that. I don't want to do that anymore. Salud. Health. But yeah, clinging to the past. And the only thing that will get us to stop living in the past and clinging to the past is to confess. To confess to God that we are not God. To confess to God that we need forgiveness. To confess to God that we need his help to keep our eyes on the city in the sky. So we gotta fight. We gotta fight by asking God for compassion. We gotta fight by asking God to give us courage. And we gotta fight by confessing to each other, to God, that, man, we're not perfect and we have issues. Because, man, the kingdom of heaven, the city in the sky, is a place I want us all to be. It's a place I want us all to look towards. It's a place that I want us all to long for. Because here's the thing, Jesus said, pray like this. I say this a lot, but he says, pray that heaven would come to earth, on earth as it is in heaven. Jesus understood this too. He was always preaching about the kingdom of God. He was always preaching about the city in the sky. And the only way that we can live like Jesus has taught us to live is to keep our eyes fixed on the city in the sky. In close, if I can get some keys, I think it's interesting that, like I said, I love airplanes. And I've only been on an airplane maybe 10 times in my life. But when you get on an airplane, they don't really call your name, but you have to have a boarding pass, right? And your name has to be on that boarding pass. And you have to show them your identification to get in the airport and all that. And if your name is not on this boarding pass, then you cannot get in the plane. You can't get on the plane. If you're not on the list, then you can't get in the plane. And if you can't get on the plane, then you can't go to the city in the sky. And it's the same way with the city in the sky that Abraham's talking about. It's the same way with heaven. Your name has to be on the list. Your name has to be on the list. It has to be in the book. In Revelations, it says that our name has to be written in the Lamb's book of life to receive eternal life. Your name literally has to be recorded to get into the city in the sky. And like I said, I pray that I have a little bit of a name in heaven somewhere. It's my name. It doesn't have to be big. It doesn't need to be broad. It doesn't need to be bold. I just want to be considered worthy of the faith that I had in Jesus Christ. I want my name to be recorded. And I want all of your names to be recorded too. As I said before, it's as simple as saying, God, here I am. All my sin, all my shame, my past, my comfort zone, my control that I think I have, I give it all before you. I lay it all down. I lay it all down. And what I want to ask you today is, do you know with 100% certainty? I think it's interesting that another thing is that when you really know, how you really know that you're a follower of Jesus is you start really caring about other people. Is you start really caring about making disciples. You start really caring about your impact and your legacy and what you're gonna leave behind, and who are you changing through the power of Christ. And I wanna say this, is that I want every single one of you guys to be a committed follower of Jesus Christ. Not just attending church, not just showing up on Sundays, not just going through the motions, but I mean really sold out, passionate, on fire, Jesus freaks. What if we just had a shirt that said Jesus freaks and we just wore it? We just wore it to school. That'd be kind of cool. That'd be kind of cool. I want to be a Jesus freak. But in close, I just want to ask you guys this. If you guys bow your heads and close your eyes.